Bless you to my dog who just sneezed. I'm gonna wait for a few more folks to join. Hi. I don't know who WABIM is, but hello. Thank you for joining. We're going to have Alvina Wong from Asian Pacific Environmental Network join us, as well as Liana Molina from East Bay Alliance for a Sustainable Economy to talk about Howard Terminal and community benefits agreements. And so, we are coming up on votes on term sheets and what that looks like. And so once they join, we'll be talking about that. But hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. APTP threw an amazing event this weekend on Saturday at Lowell Park. They had a caravan from the lake to Lowell Park. We got a little thwarted by the police who would not accommodate the caravan. So we made do like we always do and made our way around to Lowell Park and had a beautiful celebration. There were so many beautiful people there to eat and enjoy food and enjoy company and listen to great music. Kev Choice and Davey D were on the turntables mixing music, and Fabiana Rodriguez was out there holding out a little tent for art. So there was art making, and it was really great to be there in community with so many folks. And here's Liana, so I'm going to invite them up. Yay! You'll get an invitation, Liana. Hopefully you got that, and just accept the invitation. And then we'll just wait for Alvina from APEN to join us. What's up, Liana?
Hi, Liz.
How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm okay. I just got a text. Alvina is running a couple minutes late, probably from another meeting.
Okay.
So we'll have them join in just a second. But so thank you for coming on. I was just giving people update about the weekend on Saturday. There was that great community celebration to celebrate the $18 million that was redirected from the mayor's proposed budget into the to go to Department of Violence Prevention, and then also just all the wins that this refund coalition really got, right? We got so many other wins in terms of parks and recs and libraries and homeless services and arts and culture. So there was so many things that were won with this, and so we were celebrating that this weekend. And I got to see you in person, Liana. It was great. The food was yummy. And I feel bad that I don't remember who the caterer was, but the food was really good. Oh, and here is
Alvina.
Alvina.
All right. I'll be right back.
Okay. So I just want to also mention that, Oakland Rising, we are collaborative. And APEN, hi, Alvina.
Hi.
APEN and EBASE are both partner organizations to Oakland Rising, and we're part of Oakland Rising sort of from the beginning and establishing the collaborative. So let's do some quick introductions. And then while you're introducing yourselves, I also wanted to mention why we do this, right? So we do these Monday meals because we want to nourish ourselves. We nourish our bodies with our lunches. So and our food. So what are you having for lunch? I'm having leftover Brussels sprouts tempura from a meal I had over the weekend. And so, and then, I'm also moving into the week with a little bit of anxiety because we're going to take a break. So next week we're off for 2 weeks. Oakland Rising will shut down for 2 weeks. And then I'll be taking an extra week off for vacation because I really need it. Um, and so that will be my nourishment too. Just like trying to move easily through the week so I could get to the break and have a little time off and downtime. I'm sure I'll have a little work to do here and there, but just excited to have the time off. So introduce yourselves. We'll start with Liana, 'cause she hopped on first. Who you are, where you're from, your pronouns, and then also, how are you nourishing yourself today, and then just in general.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Liz, for having me. Hey, Alvina, it's great to see you. I'm Liana. I work with EBASE, the East Bay Alliance for Sustainable Economy. We're at Working East Bay on Instagram, so please follow our account. I live out in Deep East Oakland in District 7. I've been an Oakland resident since 2002, although I'm originally from El Paso, Texas, which is on the border of El Paso and Ciudad Juarez, Mexico.
Mm, so
So
much fun there.
yeah, it's a very unique place.
Hmm.
I use she, her pronouns, and yeah, I'm excited to chat with you. I'm having, in my 4 minutes between my staff meeting and now, I was able to
Hmm.
whip up a yummy avocado toast, but I don't know if I'll be eating it
Yay!
because we're going to be talking, but I'm going to try to sneak some bites.
Yes, please do. Please
All
do.
right. Hey, Alvina.
Hey, sorry for hopping on a little late. It's also one of those Monday back-to-back things. But excited to
Hmm.
both. I really do enjoy just being in space with the both of you. And I see a couple other like friends who are joining the live.
Hmm. Look at that. Protect Chinatown. Oakland Chinatown is here. Just a bunch of other people too.
Lots of fun folks. Yeah, my name is Alvina. I'm the campaign and organizing director APEN, the Pacific Environmental Network. I really came up in APEN doing Oakland organizing, and now actually in my in this role also oversee some of our Richmond organizing work, which is really how I got started organizing the Laotian refugee community in Richmond around language access issues, around Chevron, around toxic fish in the water, because a lot of our community members are sustenance fishers. And then when we branched out to Oakland, Chinatown, 2002, that's really when we started diving into housing work, housing justice, and anti-displacement, and really understanding the intersections of housing injustice with environmental justice, and really knowing that in our environmental justice movement, right, it's about everything. It's about everything where we live, work, play, and thrive. And so it's not just about talking of air quality and water quality, but it's also talking about public health and how are we in community together, and how disruptive it is when we have these major types of development projects and gentrification that actually
Hmm.
our communities that have struggled through so much and survived so much to like be able to thrive here and make lives here, but then are forced and faced again with like other pressures that challenge to or really force folks out, move their businesses, move their families, move all these things. And so um, yeah, that's something that I'll start with in the intro. Always been a big fan and deep admirer of Oakland Rising so much through our collaboration. And a lot of times I say, like our APEN mission is to have a clean and healthy environment for all. And our particular role in that is to organize our Asian community, our low income
Right.
Asian and refugee community, to understand the disinvestment and also the injustices for the sake of being able to be in these types of collaboratives like Oakland Rising that are multiracial, multi-ethnic, and multi-issue. because we know that we can't just win our communities by ourselves. And if we were to, by some miracle, that would not be a true, not all of us. And so
Right.
I think that is always something that I ground in, that nourishes me. I just went off screen for a little bit to grab some water, and that has always been a reminder, especially because it got a little bit hotter this weekend.
Yeah.
And I really like a lot of cartoons. This is fine. I like cartoons and I like comics.
Nice.
They are like perfect ways for us to reimagine a world because you could just draw something else. Plus, they're always like fun, like so warming. Like when all this stuff happens in the world, it's really nice to just kind of zone out with cartoons that are all like lovey and about problem solving and changing the world. And they also sing. Every challenging moment should just break into song and dance. Like how could you not have it in that realm? So.
I love it. I love it so much. Yes, because that is it. I always like am in meetings and I'll start singing what I'm doing. Like, we're gonna go to the next thing. And then I'm like, whenever there's an interpreter, I'm like, you gotta sing that when you interpret it. Um, Usually they refuse. But so thank you both. And as like folks are joining, please like put in the chat like the ways that you're nourishing yourself, like how you're feeding yourself, both physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And as we dive into the conversation, because we have something that's kind of really right in front of us. And I mean, our communities have been talking about it, like APEN as part of the Chinatown Coalition and EBASE as part of Oakland United Coalition have really been talking about, the A's in the Coliseum and Howard Terminal for quite a while. So it's in the forefront now because it's a little quote unquote controversial. But this is work that we've been doing for a while. And I do have to say, as a platform for Oakland Rising, public land for public good is really an important piece to really having governance that really takes care of the people. And so putting out there to folks to think about that as well. Like, what does public land for public good really look like? And so let's dive into it. I want to hear a little bit about it. And I think like the terminology for a lot of stuff is what's throwing a lot of people off. So let's talk a little bit about how we got here. If you all can talk about how did Howard Terminal become the spot that we're now all talking about? I know it's long, but if y'all could give a little bit of a truncated version of that, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. I can give a quick overview, which is that the Oakland Athletics want a fancy new ballpark. They want it on the waterfront, right? Coliseum, we've all been there. It's, it's a little run down, right? The Raiders are gone, the Warriors are gone, and the A's have pretty much said, as well as Major League Baseball, that they're not going to build there. So folks may be aware there's a big movement to try and keep the A's at the Coliseum. Right? They've said publicly time and time again, no, that's not going to happen. So they've moved full steam ahead around Howard Terminal, which is a site over near the Port of Oakland by Jack London and the industrial port, like where the cranes are. The proposal is to build a 34,000 seat stadium, as well as a performance venue, as many as 3,000 units of housing, which primarily will be luxury condos, retail, office, commercial, parks, open space. I think about anywhere from like 8,000 or 9,000 parking spaces to be able to accommodate the influx of traffic, which I think Alvina can speak to the impacts on not just West Oakland, but Chinatown as well. So this is a proposal that I think they put forward somewhere around 3 or 4 years ago. Before that, they had wanted to move to a site near Laney College. And so that was rejected. Alvina can also speak to that issue. The reason it's in the public eye now is because the owner of the A's, Dave Cavill, on his Twitter and Instagram, put out back on like April 23rd, somewhat of an ultimatum to the council. He said, here's our offer. We want the council to take some action on this before your recess. And I mean, we've heard after that time and time again that that's kind of, at least from the A's, they've kind of said, you know, this is our offer, take it or leave it. And so we're really trying to push back against that to say, hey, we want the A's to stay here. You know, you've said you're rooted in Oakland. Now we want you to really invest here in our people, in our communities, not just the real estate. There's a lot of issues and complexities in this whole deal. We can talk about, you know, I think we can hit on a number of those things in the time we'll spend together, but that's the gist of it. The A's, I would argue, are trying to bully our city council into just kind of agreeing to their terms. And so what we're saying is actually, no, hold on. This is our town, and so this has to happen on our terms, right? And that means there needs to be significant affordable housing. We need a commitment to good jobs, local hiring, fair chance hiring for Oaklanders, especially people who face barriers to employment. And we want to make sure that all the environmental issues are resolved and the community health impacts. So that's, at least for Oakland United, where our focus is. We as a coalition haven't taken a position about the location. We're pretty much focused on wherever, if they were to build out the Coliseum, we would be asking for those same things. And then I would just add the anti-displacement resources for tenants. So I'll invite Alvina to add. I know she probably has a lot to say, but
I just wanted to add just also quickly, because we've heard Kava and Cavill and as the CEO of the A's, or the right, and then there's also the Fisher Family Foundation, corporation, right, that now actually owns half of the Coliseum site as well. And so there's those pieces to it too, that it's not just like that we have to think of the A's as a corporation in our city, and there sometimes is a disconnect, right? That folks don't see it that way. People begin to identify with the Oakland A's as like their team, as opposed to like it's a corporation that's making money off of all of us and off of their team. So I just want to put that out there too. But definitely, Alvina, jump in and add a little bit more context too, because there was a big fight at the Laney College site, and Peralta really organized, Chinatown really organized. Oakland Rising was a part of that as well. We ran a texting campaign to find out what people thought, and there was a big pushback from setting up at Laney.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to add on to that, right? John Fisher, who then the Fisher family owns Gap, is a billionaire owner of the A's, and the A's millions of dollars every year. So, like Liana said, the A's and Dave Cavall, social media, were putting out all these things about like taking terms or we're leaving, and have said multiple times, even in a public meeting last week, it's Howard Terminal or bust. They really like that slogan, which is also to say, like, you don't get it our way, definitely leaving. And it's like 2013, they were already trying to leave Oakland, but they weren't allowed to by the Major League Baseball. Right. So then they were forced to stay, as if it was so bad that Oakland, their hometown, was wanting them to stay here. So I think all that context is important. And, it's off of this exodus and the Raiders. And so, of course, it's really scary to think that Oakland could go without a sports team. But whose fault is it? Is it really the city's fault, or is it multi-billionaire owners who are just trying to make more money and keep taxpayers on the hook? Like, we're paying our taxes to the Coliseum, and it hasn't, and we're in debt for that. And the new proposal in the term sheet is also to put taxpayers on the hook for about, like, I think the numbers are $855 million of infrastructure that would be needed to build this new.
Repeat that number. $850 million.
And yeah, they're going to pay for but how do you get there? How do you get out of it? And then all the development and roads and stuff that are associated with it is a total of $855 million, I believe, in this mega development. And so, like Liana was saying, is like at some point in time, all these teams decided that Coliseum wasn't good enough, that it's, you know, there are like major infrastructure problems with it, but none of them wanted to pay to improve their stadium for their players or for their team. And they decided and build somewhere else instead. And for whatever reason that they determined that, they're like, okay, we only will stay in Oakland if we could have these other sites that are downtown. Like, get us out of East Oakland where there are mostly Black and brown folks, because our fan goers don't feel comfortable, right? Like the
There
whole
it is. There it is. That is it.
the whole
You got
trend
right to it, Alvina.
is this is really disappointing. And so, yeah, 3 years ago, they were saying that we're looking at different sites, and we picked this one that's technically the community college's land. Um, for whatever reason, the only sites that they consider were all public sites, whether it belonged to the city or belonged to our community colleges. They only want to look at public land. That's the only place that's big for whatever they want to build. And at that time, I think what folks forget is between EBASE and Oakland United and Oakland Rising and all our other collaborative members, we work with hundreds of Oaklanders in our neighborhood every day. We
That's right.
ask, can you live with a stadium ballpark in Chinatown? And everyone said no. And that's
Right.
why we make sure that they did not build the stadium at Laney, right? The conversation's different now. You know, I think being at Howard Terminal, there are a lot of folks in West Oakland and Chinatown that still feel like, I can't imagine my future living next to this ballpark. And
Right.
there are folks who are like, I could imagine that, but it has to come with some really clear provisions, like affordable housing, good quality jobs for construction, and also all the permanent jobs that will be thereafter. It has to include real traffic mitigation measures to make sure that people who are walking in and out of the neighborhood are also safe. Chinatown has the highest vehicle to pedestrian death rates in the whole city, let alone accident rates, right? And that's because Chinatown has been designed to be a thoroughfare with all the one-way streets to move people from the freeways, from Alameda, straight into downtown, back onto the freeways to San Francisco or whatever the case. And it actually creates all this air pollution for our residents, mostly seniors, children who are like going to school or childcare or are being cared for by their grandparents while their parents are working somewhere else. And it causes a lot of those impacts in Chinatown. And so I think the goal is never to like kick someone out, right? It's really about like, if you're moving into the neighborhood, how are you going to do it the right way? And how are you going to actually recognize that you're moving into existing neighborhood with people who have lived here for so long, who've made it work, given all the other conditions. And if you're you actually have a responsibility to pay.
That's right.
And you have a really in East Oakland with the Coliseum and what you've done there. And I live in East Oakland. I live near the Coliseum actually. And I talked to my time about it too. And I remember that conversation a few years ago was like, oh yeah, you know, that was different leadership at a different time, and we're going to try to do better now. Well, do better now by actually moving in a responsible way where you're actually promising and committing to on paper, you know, good jobs,
That's
affordable
right.
and actual like integration of the existing arts and culture. We have so much history and legacy there, and I think people don't even know or remember that original Chinatown was at Howard Terminal. It got burned and kicked out and moved up to San Pablo.
That's right.
Out, and now it's where it's at now,
That's
right? We
right.
have of that type of racism, not for our Asian and Chinese community, but for the Black community as well. And
Right.
we do the right thing moving forward, recognizing you're not be able to erase all of that or repair all of that generations of history of disinvestment, but you could help spurt into something else and want to go forward where we can actually coexist.
Thank you for that. Can you just repeat the stat about the traffic accidents and the accidents with pedestrians?
Yeah, so we call it like vehicular pedestrian accidents, which are
Right.
like obviously, I think it's just we have the highest rates in the whole city.
The highest rates.
The highest rates of accidents and also the highest rates of actual death. So where the accident results in the pedestrian losing their life.
Right.
I think
Right.
a lot of the folks that walk around in China are also seniors.
Right.
Ago there
That's
was
why now there's those crosswalks through the intersection, and you can't actually cross on when the cars are moving. They have to stop all for the pedestrians, and I know that has had an impact. And so, I appreciate you bringing in that history too, Alvina, about Chinatown's location, because it is steeped in racism, right? The why Chinatown is located where it's located, surrounded by two freeways, right? Like directly pushed up against underneath the freeway, and pushed up against the port, for a reason, right? Um,
yeah,
and like for example, I remember when we were driving on the 880 past Chinatown, and on the right is Chinatown, on the left is Jack London, and downtown is on a little bit to the right, and then West Oakland and the ports are there. And I remember my oldest daughter, when we were driving there, she was like, "What's here? What's here?" And I was naming those things, right, to her, the neighborhoods, and she goes, "It's like their freeway is meant to cut people in half and neighborhoods in half."
exactly.
And like the impact of that as an urban design is done in a way that it really is about how they use environmental injustice to impact our communities. So I really appreciate you bringing up the things about Chinatown and the air quality and the quality of life, right? And that we do have an incredible amount of seniors who actually live in Chinatown. But it is also one of those places that, like, it isn't just Chinese people coming through Chinatown. It is a thoroughfare for so much economic, wealth, and like ownership, right? But then
Right,
there is such a disparity between like who owns and who's impacted.
right.
So I just see here somebody wrote, the connection between traffic and air pollution. It's looking back at, the environmental injustices in Chinatown. That's right. Um, and
And
so, mhm.
I I just want to name like I obviously will talk a lot and forever about Chinatown, and it's not with any misunderstanding by any means that West Oakland has not been similarly, if more
That's
in
right.
the same ways by traffic and the freeway and the 880 cutting the neighborhood and the BART
That's
train
right.
above ground cutting the neighborhood, right? And
That's
so
right.
just to just to add that caveat.
I appreciate that too. And then also the environmental impact that most low income, right, communities in the flatlands have to face. It's not just in Oakland, it's not just in Chinatown. It definitely is across. That's why we only have trucks on the 880. We don't have trucks going on the 580 in the hills. There's definitely no trucks going through the 13, right? So the impacts around environment, I think, are really important for us to look at. And somebody just put, it destroyed a vital Black business community, and it's going to continue to do that, right? That there is a lot of opportunity, I think, that people see with a development project like Howard Terminal. But what does that mean, I think, for communities is that they don't really see that happening. Like, what happened when the Coliseum landed where it did? And what did it do to the community there? Because there used to be a thriving Black community, and economic district that was near the Coliseum as well, that then got decimated because everybody's now focused on the Coliseum. And so, I want to talk a little bit about what are these things that we're hearing, right? Like, even I was like, what's a term sheet? What's this? What's, coming on board and going, like, I think a lot of people don't know what a community benefits agreement is, and what are the things that the A's said they were going to do back a few years ago, and what they're saying now is really different. And then how enforceable are community benefits agreements? Like, what are we fighting for, and what does that, like, accountability look like on the back end?
Sure. There's a lot that's been said and some comments that I wanted to make. I
Mm-hmm.
think, first of all, thank you for calling out the Fishers, because that's like critical to this whole conversation,
Right.
right? Everyone
Right.
loves the A's. Everyone wants the A's to stay in Oakland, right?
Right.
Baseball is great, fun.
I love
Um,
the A's. I've been
yeah,
going
but
to them since I was a kid.
this is about corporate developers. And my
Mm-hmm.
colleague the other day, we were having a conversation. He called them, corporate vultures, right? That are like
Mm,
totally exploiting
that's
our
one way to
land
say
and
it.
our communities. So, with regard to like what's problematic, there's many things with the offer that the A's have made, and one is that
Mm-hmm.
they don't want to. The Fishers don't want to commit to any money out of their pocket to support these community benefits that we're asking for, right? So
So they're going to make billions off of this, but they're not going to give back to the community that they're going
they
to
said that this is
totally shift and
privately
change.
financed, but the
Uh-huh.
only part that's actually financed is the stadium, right? It's a $12 billion project, $1 billion stadium that they're going to pay for, but they're proposing to establish these new business tax districts, like by that area encompassing the where the stadium would be,
Okay.
that would ultimately, through those tax increments, reimburse them for like all the infrastructure costs for building this out. So it's a
So we're
big.
carrying the 11 million billion dollar the tick the to have that development come in.
Well, it gets complicated because of the financing mechanism, because they would argue that right now there's no taxes being generated because it's an industrial site, right? It's
Mm.
steel. So they're saying, basically their argument is the ballpark is the benefit to the community, right? Like the fact that we're building this is great. Like it's gonna, you know what I mean? The typical
Mm-hmm.
arguments that developers will make. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously there's a huge concern. I mean, we talked about the environmental concerns, traffic, air quality, but obviously displacement is a huge concern, right? West Oakland has already been affected by, you know,
Gentrification.
yeah. So this poses a huge threat, and we need some investment in affordable housing. What's on
Mm-hmm.
the table right now is not acceptable, and our city council reps, specifically Carol Fife from West Oakland, even Lauren Taylor from East Oakland, Dan Cal from
Right.
North Oakland, last week were like, yeah, it's absurd that the Fishers are proposing pretty much no financial contribution of their own, right? And in
Right.
fact, they're asking for waivers of existing city requirements to
They
build
make
affordable
and what people
student
are
housing.
saying in the chat, they make billions of dollars off of sweatshop labor,
They
right?
do, yeah.
Yeah. And they want us to give them a little bit more so they can make some more? Like, come on now.
Well, the
And
thing about the Fishers, they're one percenters. So these are like mega billionaires. They are some of the wealthiest landowners in the whole country, and they're behind this kind of movement towards privatization
Right.
of public education, public
Exactly.
land. And,
Exactly.
I see that as part of like the bigger scheme. But I
Yeah.
think Alvina wants to weigh in.
I mean, there's so many different directions to go in this, but I think just to echo, like, yeah, they're talking about privately financing their stadium, and that's just
Mm-hmm.
one 55
Mm.
acre development, right? Like Liana was saying at the beginning, they're also talking about hotels, they're talking about more market rate housing, they're talking about a total of 1.77 million square foot of commercial real estate, which is like office buildings and um, like storefront retail. I did the comparison at one point, and I think if folks know Chinatown and Pacific Renaissance, that's about the same as like 19 Pacific Renaissances,
What? That's
like
huge.
commercial space. Yeah, just for comparison, it's not a small number. So out of that whole development, yeah, the A's might pay for their own stadium, but everything else, let's think about how much of that will also require public subsidy or other developers and other things. And I think that's what makes it really confusing, because when we hear the project, we really think A's, this beloved baseball team. But what we
Right.
don't what is behind that is this huge 55-acre mega development with multiple developers, multiple types of investors that are looking to benefit and profit from their development while making it and also after it's built, right? And in
Right.
addition to not being willing to pay anything out of pocket for community benefits, which the city has said over and over, like that's the definition of community benefits, is like what you pay above and beyond what is legally required of you. They're asking for waivers so that they don't have to build the minimum amount of affordable housing and don't have to pay into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And they're also expecting that taxpayers are gonna, again, fund all like the infrastructure needs and costs that will make this development successful, right?
Because for them, they're like, if we don't have this development, then we won't have the Howard Terminal. And they're kind of holding that as well, right? That's part of their leverage point is then if you don't give us this, if you don't create this big thing around our project, make us feel comfortable enough to stay, then we're going to leave. And,
Right.
you know, Rosability Scrapbooks wrote, exploiting fans' love for the team for interest of developers. And I think that is one of the big keys to this moment, is that this is about developers making tons of much more money. And we don't need more fucking at rate
Market.
market rate housing. We have a
Yeah.
gluttony. We have 175% gluttony of market that isn't filled. So why the hell would we want to do that? That doesn't make any
Right.
sense when we have such a huge homelessness population and situation here in Oakland that is caused by because of the housing situation.
Right. And I think what's challenging with this is the argument has been, well, we need the market rate housing so that you get more income and you get more of these units so that the few people who can afford the market rate housing stop competing with the folks who are living in currently affordable housing. See, you're confused with this logic, right? But that's
wait, what?
If you build more housing, then less people are going to get kicked out of the flatlands. But that's not where they want to live anyways.
This is some like stupid trickle down economics bullshit.
It's exactly that. And what was happening 4 years ago when they first talked about moving to the Laney was the city was approving left and right all these new market rate developments. I think in that time period between like, oh my God, my years are messy, but somewhere between like 2014 to 2016, you were approve. I think it was somewhere around 5,000 new market rate units in the downtown area with no affordable housing. No one was building affordable housing, but the logic, once the market rate is there and built, then we'll have money for affordable housing. Forget that building that much housing and that development pushes people out. So you've cleared out the terrain. Say later that you're going to build affordable housing for people.
That's right. That's right.
Already moved out of the city. It doesn't make sense. And I think
Protect Oakland Chinatown said hella backwards.
Exactly.
Yeah. So one thing,
go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to kind of bring it back a little bit. I don't know how long this goes, Liz, but you raised a couple key questions.
Yeah.
The public has as well. So
yes,
just answer
please.
The question about the term sheet, what's happening next Tuesday, a day from tomorrow at the City Council.
That's right.
What we have planned for the week. So when the A's put out this threat back in April, they subsequently followed it up with like announcement that they were pursuing relocation options. And we've seen Dave Cavall tweeting from Vegas, him and John Fisher make the weekly or biweekly rounds to Vegas. And what they said to the council again was, hey, we want you to take some action on this before your summer recess. So Council President Bass, Vice Mayor Rebecca Kaplan, and District Rep Carol Fife sent a letter to Major League Baseball basically affirming the city council's goodwill to have serious negotiations about this, right? And part of that was scheduling this for July 20th, next Tuesday. There's going to be a special city council meeting Tuesday morning in which they consider this term sheet. And what the term sheet is, it's a non-binding agreement that basically lays out all the terms that the city is going to negotiate with the Fishers on for the final development agreement.
Got it.
So,
who writes that?
Agreement,
Who writes that?
So it's primarily the city administration, right? If folks follow open politics, Ed Reskin is a city administrator. He has other staff people. The assistant city administrator is a woman named Betsy Lake.
Right.
There's a big planner. Her name is Molly Rayburn. So these are all city staff that are bottom lining these negotiations, along with, like, the city attorney has to vet everything from a legal perspective. You know, they have finance people running numbers. They have consultants doing analysis. So all of this is really happening. And we're trying to work with our city council members to really support their leadership, right? Last week was the first time they had any public conversation about Howard Terminal. Believe it or not.
Because it's been all closed door until now, or just like the city's been doing their thing on their own without
the city administration for the last year and a half, in partnership with the A's, had been running what they called like a community benefits process. It was a public engagement process. EBASE was part of it. APEN was part of it. Probably, you know, throughout the course of the whole thing, I would say maybe a couple hundred people from the community, from organizations, took part. There were 7 topic cohort groups ranging from housing, jobs, environment, arts and culture, transportation, I think education and community health. Those were the different categories. And then groups met for like 8 or 9 months. I'm talking about like weekly or bi-weekly. And out of that came up with a set of recommendations for community benefits.
Got it.
So there was a process happening over here, right? The city council was completely disengaged from that. And it wasn't until a couple months ago when Dave, on behalf of the Fishers, made this big public announcement via social media and prompted this whole, you know. So,
and he threw the gauntlet down. He'd even like do a soft pitch. He's like, "This is it. Give it to us." And he didn't put it on the administration or on the Fisher Corporation. He put it on the city council. Like, you all need to do this for us. And just it became a threat.
Right. Yes, and I'll say that Libby supports this project, right?
She loves this project.
Yeah, this is, you know, she wants to hang
She
her hat on
loves the developers. She loves them so much.
She does, and I think she's busy behind the scenes trying to get the financing, right, to make this happen, and lobbying for, you know, public infrastructure monies from the state. So what we're saying is, hey, look, we as a community, as taxpayers, need a return on all these public investments that are going to go toward actualizing this project.
That's right. Your cat is like down for this too. Your cat is like, she heard Libby and she's like, wow.
Exactly. Yeah, she's a little warrior, little Black Panther mini.
Hey.
So, you know, we're again trying to really lift up the leadership of our city council to like direct the negotiations, right?
That's right.
Affordable housing needs to be part of the final deal, and what is prioritized for community benefits, you know, beyond July 20th, because it's unclear when the final development agreement will be brought for approval, or if we're even going to get that far, quite frankly, because the A's right now are super far apart from where the city council is, and we're obviously far apart from where the community is and what we want to see. So it's unclear if everything's going to come together, but we're appealing to the A's to be good neighbors, right? If they really are rooted in Oakland, we want them to demonstrate that. I don't know if that's going to happen, but, you know, we want the council to make a strong statement to assert, you know, again, our town, our terms, right? And there needs to be more of a commitment to good jobs, right? We want the living wage. We want local hiring, fair chance hiring. We want at least 35% affordable housing is what came out of that process I described earlier. And what Oakland United has been lifting up is like a minimum. So there's a lot left to be negotiated if the A's step up to the table. If the Fishers really want to stay here, you know, we're asking them to invest here. Right.
And just
so if you want,
and what Liana was saying about that whole process with like the city-led community benefits agreement and the steering topic cohorts, it's like hundreds of hours from the community has been engaging in these conversations in good faith with the understanding of like, we will talk to you and we'll give you our best. We want to put this out as like some of the conversations at the table with the assumption and hope that the A's would actually sit down and talk to us about it. But every time through that process that the A's would be in and sitting in, we're like, can you share more about your numbers? Can you share more about the development? All this stuff. EIR hasn't come out yet. And they're like, no, we can't share that yet. It's not public yet. So we don't know. And it's like, we've been working on this for And then while we're in the middle of it, you're going to blast the city council this term sheet, this take it or leave it term sheet, and,
Right.
and say that it's the city's fault. You all have not shown up as actual partners who want to collaborate with the city. You're just trying to off that you did something, but not have to commit to anything. And
That's right.
that's not Oakland. That's not what we have expectations. We have standards here because we deserve all of that stuff. We deserve everything that the
That's
community
right.
is talking about. And that's why we need to have the A's actually sit at the table. We could, potentially next Tuesday have a term sheet that like really defends and advocates for the communities, and the A's could still make their decision to say like, you're asking too much from us, so we're gonna leave. But that's not fair. That's just holding us hostage to do it your way or no way. And
Right.
are we just beholden to corporations and multi-billionaires, or are we actually like responsible for our community and our community health and our to grow into the future?
That's right. That's right. And I think like, you know, um, the way that they did this was a setup to really go after the city council members, specifically Carol Fife in District 3, right? And Rebecca Kaplan, as well as Nikki Bass, because those two districts are going to be greatly impacted by it. And, Rebecca Kaplan is the rep at large. So I think they've taken a really strong stance, like, don't threaten us, like, come in good faith. And I don't know, I have to really admit, as we come to a close, right? Like maybe we could come to wrap around this, is that, when in situations like this, I often feel like there's this juggernaut of a system that is already in favor of developers and of corporations and of billionaires. So how do we come up against that? And I always have to come back to like people power, because I have seen not only in Oakland, I have seen across the world the way that people power really, and it's not just marches, it's not just showing up in action in those types of actions, but that it really comes down to like people who have been organized for a really long time and building the power of people's voices. And so I wonder, where's the hope that we can rely on and lean into? And where are the asks from the community? What are people can do now? Not just the 100 or so people who are part of the community benefits agreements group, but that can really step up and like, one, support the council members. And I really appreciate you saying that, Liana, like supporting their leadership on this, but also, big FU to the Fisher Foundation, Fisher Corporation, and their tactics for doing what they're doing in Oakland. And what are the values by which we want Oakland to really be living by? See, that cat again, she knows what's up.
Yeah.
She's like, I got a lot to say about that.
She definitely does. Yeah, well, what I would say, Liz, as far as the easy stuff is like what's coming up well, it's not easy, but what's concretely coming up over the next few days.
Mm-hmm.
We're organizing Open United, Chinatown Coalition, and Chinatown Coalition are having like a presser and a small rally on Wednesday morning.
Great.
From 11. We're doing it to call attention to the issue and in particular lift up these community needs, right? And the community benefits that we're calling on the Fishers to contribute to: the housing, the jobs, the environmental pieces, the neighborhood specific impacts. So we would invite folks to join us. It's going to be near Jack London Square. I guess I would say hit up EBASE or Oakland Chinatown Coalition, without putting things out too publicly. Next Tuesday, the city council meeting is going to be at, I believe, 10 a.m., 9:30 or 10 a.m. I can double check real quick. And so we're inviting folks to turn out and make public comment. Again, lifting up these issues and supporting our council members and taking leadership here and holding these developers accountable. And then, of course, if that's not possible to virtually attend, weighing in via the public comment portal, directly emailing your council member. I think Councilmember Fife for District 3 residents in West Oakland has a poll on her Twitter where
Mm-hmm.
she's asking folks to weigh in directly, right? And the option she's put out there is, you know, this notion of our town, our terms, right? We need a CBA for this project. Those that are in the build it doesn't matter, just build it camp. And then those that are like, this is like no, all bad, right? Like no go. So she's trying to get a read from folks in her district about, you know, just where folks are at. I know she's also having a town hall this Saturday morning at Taylor Memorial United Methodist Church in West Oakland. So I'd encourage particularly her West Oakland constituents to come through to that. And then we're going to find out like what happens next week. It's unclear whether or not the A's are going to agree to any terms. To me, it's seeming like this is going to be the city council's or the city's counter proposal, right, to their offer that they put forward in April.
Right.
And you know, it has yet to be seen what's going to come of that, right? Are they seriously going to negotiate? And if so, are they going to move, right? What Dave said last week is we put forward our proposal. We're down to negotiate on the margins, like not make any, you know, major substantive changes is what I heard Dave Cavell say last week. So, you know.
So the meeting on the 20th is at 9 a.m. So,
okay, did you check?
Yeah, I just checked right now. So folks can show up and do public comment. Pro tip, when you log on, if you're doing it, push raise hand immediately so that you're on the stack as quick as possible and that you don't wait for when they call for public comment. And then that if you can't make it, again, like what Liana was saying, is email, leave voice messages, leave emails, and also you can leave a comment, an e-comment on the agenda. And you have to do that half an hour before the meeting starts. So before 8:30 a.m. on the 20th, so you can get on that. And this all becomes public record, right? So that we can also document what the public really wants. And, you know, the fan base really wants Oaklands to stay. And I want to say, as somebody who really supports the CBA, supports the community, and really what public land for public good really looks like, that I want the A's to stay. But I'm also from Oakland and I'm not going to be bullied. Like, right? Like, I don't think our community really wants that. And so I wonder about the voices that are out there. Are they really from Oakland? Are they those fans that are from outside of Oakland who are from the suburbs, and those suburbs that were created as a matter of white flight from our communities, right? That don't want to come into, you know, into Deep East. And I think this is a big problem. So, Alvina, why don't you close us out with, you know, what do you think folks need to do, and what steps we want to take, and what people need to be looking out for?
Yeah, I mean, I think like Liana said, Wednesday morning, we're going to have a little rally to really bring our demands forward and invite and really ask truthfully, are you really trying to stay? And are you really going to do your best effort to make it work for all of us? Comment, send emails. You can reach out to myself or Liana for details. And also, again, do comment, listen in on at the city council meeting. Be critical. And definitely just keep sharing your stories of what is it that you want to see, and making sure that that gets heard just as loud as all the other angry fans who are saying, you know, some BS stuff in the city. That makes it seem like the city is in the wrong for trying to uphold some real standards for our communities and for all of us, which is something that we've been pushing on them to do for years.
Appreciate that. And really, you know, like, show up for your folks, you know, show up and, you know, like, lift up the leadership of some of our city council members that are really fighting for those pieces, because they're coming after them really, really hard, right? And we really need to get behind our folks and let them know that that we won't settle for this settler colonialism. Urban Bush Queen put that in the chat earlier. That has been sticking with my mind. Like, this is another form of that. So, so thank you both Yay, I really appreciate you both. Your wealth of knowledge around this and the work that you're doing, not only for your communities, but also for Oakland as a whole, right? That you're looking out for us and really organizing and doing the work. So, mad love to you both, to EBASE, to APEN. Check them both out. You can check out oaklandrising.org. Just letting you know that next week we're going to go on break, so we won't have Monday meals. But you all can make sure that you check out the past Monday meals that we've had. And then when I get back in August, we'll start it up again and we'll be talking about beyond recovery. What does that platform look like for Oakland Rising? So we'll be talking about all the ways in which, the question has been out there about like, how can we take care of ourselves? How are we taking care of ourselves is actually the question, right? What does public safety really look like and how are we building that? And so we're going to talk about food justice. We're going to talk about housing. We're going to talk about all of these things that are really important that are all tied into that community benefits agreement, as well as like our larger platform. So look out for that, y'all.
Liz, I just want to say two things. One is I'm so excited that you're taking vacation, and I wholeheartedly support you and hope you don't check email or text or anything, and you can truly take a break. And then the other thing, I just want to plant the seed that maybe we can come back in August or September to do a follow-up because the city council meeting will have happened, and we should presumably have a better sense on like what the next steps are, what the A's are doing, how things are moving,
for sure,
how we're organizing. So
yes, I agree totally. And maybe that'll be the first one we start off with, and I'll be in touch with you all about that. So everybody else too, if you want, you like Oakland Rising Action is putting out there, you can look at our archives and then also donate. You can go to oaklandrising.org/donate. That helps us to fund this Monday Meals series that we've been doing. So thank you so much. Bye.
Thank
Have
you,
a great
Liz.
day.
Thank you, Alvina. See you on Wednesday. Peace, y'all.
Bye.
Take care.